Oh,
I got mine.
you want a scotch?
Here with my check here.
You know, there's a stopwatch on there.
Yeah, I know it's
Who's keeping track of the time? You? All right.
Some people still care.
My question is, anybody, you want to start with Glenn and then go to Jeff and then Bobby in that order? Or
Go down.
Yeah, let's just look at it. Mine are all.
Pfeiffer. Let's go. 60.
pretty thin here.
All right, ready?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first of two 2020 election debates hosted by the Niagara Gazette and the Niagara USA Chamber. Our first debate tonight is for the mayoral candidates in Niagara Falls. We're happy to have with us Glenn Choolokian, Larry Elder, and Jeffrey Elder, and Robert Restaino. We've run over the ground rules for the debate. We're streaming this live on the Gazette Facebook page. And we'll begin with opening statements, starting first of all with Glenn Choolokian. Mr. Choolokian.
First, I'd like to thank the Niagara Gazette and the Chamber of Commerce for having this forum tonight. This work, Check. Check.
Say cash. Use this. Yeah. Share.
All right, let's try that again.
No, none of the mics.
Where's our audio person?
We
Right
don't
over.
have an audio person. We have none.
Test 1, 2.
Yeah, speak into it, Glenn. Got to speak loud.
All right, let's try that again. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and Niagara Gazette for having this forum tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's amazing seeing all the people here today. For the people that don't know me, my name is Glenn Elocution, and I've been here at Niagara Falls my whole life. A little background about myself. I'm married. My wife Pamela, son Gage, and daughter Hope. I used to own nightclubs on Main Street in the early 90s. I have over 32 years experience with the City of Niagara Falls and Niagara Falls Water Board, and I'm a two-term former council member. The thing that I'm excited about this campaign is that there's more people involved and more people that care about Niagara Falls for the first time in a long time. I think Niagara Falls is definitely looking for a new direction. The most important thing about my campaign is I decided to make a new kind of campaign by putting videos out exactly what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And please check out my Facebook page and my website, and I'll show you exactly what my plan is. I think the most important thing with this leadership at Niagara Falls is experience, qualifications, and a plan. That's the three things that I have, and I'm very excited for this campaign to get going and election in 2 weeks.
Mr. Elder.
Good evening. I'm Jeffrey Elder, and I'm an independent candidate for mayor of Niagara Falls, New York. And I first wanted to thank God for giving me this opportunity to be here and speak to you all. And then I'd like to also thank the Niagara Gazette and the Chamber for hosting this event. I grew up in this beautiful city of Niagara Falls, and I'm a proud product of the Niagara Falls public school system. Shortly after graduating from LaSalle Senior in 1980, I went out to the United States Air Force, where I spent 27 years and served honorably in the United States Air Force. The last 16 years I spent serving Presidents Bush, Clinton, and Bush on Air Force One, traveling all over the world and making many contacts during those travels. After military retirement, my first civilian job was at the Pentagon, where I helped providing security against domestic and foreign threats, which continued when I moved over to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and then to the Department of Homeland Security. My last 7 years in the Washington, D.C. area was at the Department of State. This is where I developed policy and ensured that the Department of State's most valuable resource is 36,000+ employees knew how to stay safe both at home and at work for all hazards and emergencies. Through all of these experiences, I've managed staff and budgets that far exceeds the budgets and staffs of Niagara Falls, New York. I feel that is eminently qualifies me to be the mayor of Niagara Falls. I'm married. I have 2 beautiful daughters. I have and I have a granddaughter. I have 5 sisters, and finally now I have a grandson. So I'm really happy for that. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you, Mr. Elder. Mr. Restaino.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And once again, I also would like to thank the sponsors and all of you for your participation in this event this evening. Many of you in this room know me. I have either represented you or represented members of your family over the past nearly 35 years of my law practice in this community. I, like so many of us, I'm born and raised here and I've never left. I have committed myself to not only putting my business in this community, but also raising my family here. I'm proud to say that my family has worked both in the private and the public sector throughout this community and throughout the wider Niagara County community. And it's our opinion that public service is just that. It's service to the public. And that's what we have to get back to. We have to get back to the idea that the idea of government is to serve the people, to do what you can to make their lives easier. So much of that's been lost over the course of the last several years. We know what the problems are, and as I've walked through your neighborhoods with you, you've explained to me the things that are most important to you, as well as the challenges that you understand the city faces. Many of you know me, and if you don't know me, many of you have had the opportunity now to meet me. I'm not a person that walks away from a challenge. I'm prepared to face the challenges that the city has head on, and with your help, I hope to be able to improve the situation that we're in. After being a practicing attorney for over the last 30 plus years, I know what it takes to have a conversation with folks who we need to get to help us. We can't go it alone anymore. We're stronger together. And so I'd like to bring those abilities and those talents to City Hall in an effort to bring more people to the table for the city's concerns. And with your help, we'll be able to do that starting January 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Restaino. Our questioners tonight are talk radio host Tom Darrow of WJJL Radio and Niagara Gazette Regional News Director Mark Scheer. Our first question will come from Mr. Darrow, and it will go to Mr. Choolokian.
I need the mic. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rick. General question. One of the top issues that Niagara Falls faces is a cash flow problem at this point. We are in a stalemate with the Senecas. Question is, can you and will you negotiate directly with the Senecas and bypass the governor if you're elected?
That's a good question, Tom. We have an agreement with New York State and the Seneca Nation. It's called 99H. We can't go directly and cut out the state and make a deal with the Seneca Nation. But what we can do is January 1st, I'm going to meet with the Seneca Nation, and we're going to do some side deals with them. I'm going to ask them to get involved with Niagara Falls. I want to let them have an opportunity to help Niagara Falls. One of my ideas is for them to fund 5 police officers for our city. Let them fund the whole thing. Let them start doing things for our community. Again, that's the things we're allowed to do with them on the side. We can't bypass that 99H. So I'm looking forward to meet with the Seneca Nation and get things done directly, working together with the City of Niagara Falls and the Seneca Nation.
Mr. Elder, a 30-second rebuttal.
I agree with that also, but one thing I also wanted to make clear is that we want to make sure that the Senecas are getting certain services that all of you are paying for also. It's not fair for you to pay for those things and them to not pay for those things. I will not go over the governor, but we will make sure that we visit this and get to the Senecas to the table as soon as possible.
Mr. Restaino, 30 seconds.
Not only can I and will I, but I have. Over the summer, I've had the opportunity to sit with the leadership of the Seneca Nation and to talk about the same arrangement that they currently have with regard to the city of Buffalo. It's my intention to enter into those same types of contract for services the things that you and I pay taxes for. My conversations with the Seneca Nation indicate that they are prepared to do that with our city. And they're also prepared to do business with me. So I have developed what I think is a good relationship with the Seneca Nation for those purposes, and I'm prepared to advance the interests of the city of Niagara Falls.
Mr. Scheer has the next question. We'll begin with Mr. Elder.
What do you view as the main concern facing the city right now? And if you were elected, what would you do in an effort to fix that problem?
Right now, our main concern is ensuring that everyone feels safe in this city. There's an issue. My mother was actually had her purse stolen on July 18th, and it's a serious issue for the city, for our residents, but also it's a serious issue for all those 8 million plus people that are coming to the city every year. If the citizens don't feel safe, how do you think the all of those tourists that are paying their hard-earned dollars are going to feel safe? So we need to put things in place to make sure that they do feel comfortable when they come here, but most important of all, Niagara first. We need to make sure that we feel safe here.
Mr. Restaino, 30 seconds.
Well, the most important issue with regard to the city is its budget. A lot of the things that many of the candidates will talk about rise and fall on whether or not there is sufficient funding within the budget. We have a 10 million or more structural deficit that we have to address. We have to find a way to do that while addressing the concerns, everything from safety to the removal of trees in neighborhoods, dead trees. So there are a lot of things we have to accomplish, but it all rises and falls on whether or not we're able to get our fiscal house in order.
And Mr. Choolokian, 30 seconds.
Both candidates are both right on. Definitely crime and definitely the budget. I have a proven track record of cutting things in the budget. How to fix the finances of the Niagara Falls, we have to definitely do things different. We can't waste money. My plan for change is to do things different with new technology, do things cheaper. If we do the roads 40% cheaper, that's 40% more money to go on the budget. My expertise is 30 years of budgets and contracts, city budget. I go through line by line, we cut things and we reduce the funds so that the taxpayers don't have to pay for it. Crime, I have a plan for crime where we're going to have more police on the streets, we're going to have new technology. It's a mess in Niagara Falls. It's something that we can't just look at one thing. It's a total mess of 30 years of destruction, and we're going to have to look at a lot of things, and the people in Niagara Falls business have to come first, and my background qualification has proven that I've done that in the past.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mr. Restaino. Mr. Dare.
Actually, when legitimate developers come into Niagara Falls, they meet with City Hall representatives. They could meet with 18 or 20 people. Come to find out they didn't talk to the right department yet. Many of the people feel that we're not friendly when it comes to business development. Is there a way to streamline this, again, for legitimate developers, not the people who say we're going to do a $450 or $500 million project, talking about real life developers? Can we streamline this process?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can accomplish. I think for any developer, any business person, as well as any resident who has a project that he or she may be interested in, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take our economic development group, I'd like to take our planning group, I'd like to bring them all together and hopefully start the business of having a project manager is what I would call that person. If you were to come to City Hall with a project, I'd like that person to be the person who carries you all the way through it. You go through the various steps, that would be the person that you would contact in order to be able to get over perhaps some confusion or some difficulty, so that you're not being forced to try and navigate through the labyrinth yourself, but rather have somebody in the system helping you get through the system. The only way we can start to become business friendly is to take the developers' ideas and bring them across the finish line. And as we do that, we begin to grow the business economy, and as we grow the business economy, we take some of the pressure off of what appears to be an awfully difficult fiscal circumstance right now.
Choolokian, 30 seconds.
Well, being at City Hall for those lot of years, I think the biggest complaint is everybody's treated different. It depends who you are, and then some people get special treatment, other people don't. The most important thing is we have to have a system in place that we walk through the whole process of bringing developers here, making sure they're successful, and giving them the right advice. We have a planning board, we have a zoning board. Over the years, they've been overridden by not taking care of the right people at some time. So we have to put a system in place, give it good advice, and help them from the start to finish. And that's very important for business.
Mr. Elder, 30 seconds.
When you have developers coming in, one thing we want to make sure that they understand is they need to be a legitimate developer. And one thing that we also want to make sure is they understand that the door will be open to all developers now, because we want to make sure that it's not just a select few. We want to make sure that everyone has this opportunity to get in on this and to see what they actually have us to offer. So.
Thank you. We begin our next question with Mr. Choolokian and Mr. Shearer.
We often hear from the candidates about the need to increase services, enhance police protection, cut trees, provide those sort of services. And at the same time, as we all know, the city has a very serious financial problem. So could each of you talk a little bit, maybe offer a few specific things that you would try to do to reduce the cost in government while maintaining the services?
Okay, if you look at my videos, I have a lot of new ideas. I have a new road equipment coming. It's a new road machine that does 40% cheaper once the roads are done. It rips everything up, lays the road right back down. We can do probably in 15 minutes, 20 minutes a whole road, 40% cheaper. That's the way cheaper, faster. I have a new pothole machine that fills potholes in about 2 minutes. Again, using our equipment and our workers wisely. I talked about funding more police. I was looking at, for Seneca Nation, like I talked about, them funding 5 police. For sure, I'm gonna fund 5 police officers using tourism fund money. Done it in the past as a councilman, I'm gonna do it again as mayor. Number 3, I'm gonna go to the state park. With $7 million people going through the state parks, I'm gonna ask them to fund 5 police officers. So that's a total of 15 police officers back on our street that frees up money in our budget. Same thing, trimming trees, fixing sidewalks. I have a new equipment coming for sidewalks. It's called Veltrometric Mixer, where we can lay the sidewalks down in small areas, faster, cheaper, quicker. And again, I've been working for the city of Niagara Falls and Niagara Falls Water Board 32 years. We used to have 800 hourly employees. We have 96
Mr. Choolokian, time.
left.
Mr. Elder, 30 seconds.
Well, I say if we fight crime by creating, we can fight crime by creating jobs. We can create jobs by growing our tourism industry. We can increase our tourism if we create new venues. When we create new venues, we can improve our services and hold the line on taxes. This could result in the reduced taxes, which results in encouraging new businesses to come to our area. This could also create a job and a new future for us in Niagara Falls.
Thank you, Mr. Elder. Mr. Restaino, 30 seconds.
Mark, could you repeat that for me?
I need a mic. Essentially, we just want to know some of the specifics that you would use to reduce costs in government while maintaining the services.
Well, throughout the campaign, I've spoken about the idea of collaborative government. That means working with our first-ring suburbs as well as the county of Niagara to provide some of the general government services that all of us need. Simple things. It could be as simple as having a collaborative effort to purchase workers' compensation insurance. There are cost-saving reductions built into government while we're working together. As long as we're able to shrink some of the non-personnel costs of government, then I think we need to make sure that we have professional administrators within our departments to deploy our personnel in the best possible way. I think once we take a look at the workforce rules and we see how we can better position our employees, we'll tackle those issues.
Our next question is from Mr. Elder, Mr. Darrow.
People have been calling every day on our program with what they think is wrong with the city of Niagara Falls. No place is perfect, of course, we realize that. Anything from blight in the city to traffic violations, parking violations. Rarely, though, is there a solution. I'd be interested to know what your top priority is as a problem with Niagara Falls and your plan to fix it.
Well, of course, as I said earlier, one of our top problems we feel is crime in the city. One of the things we can do by that is having more of a show of force of the police force in the community. Back in the day, the police force used to walk the beat and had a relationship with all of the people in the neighborhoods. That's really not happening right now, and if we get back to something like that, when one of the police officers sees somebody out there and they're doing something wrong, they're going to take care of it. So that's one of the things I think that can really help us out in this effort.
Mr. Restaino.
Well, I've said it over and over again. The elephant in the room is the hole in the budget. So what I think we need to do in terms of improving the lot here is to bring some integrity, professionalism, and transparency to government. We need to have people begin the process of trusting that government can in fact manage its own affairs. Once we begin that process, a lot of these other symptoms of that greater disease of our budget crisis, our fiscal problems, will begin to take care of themselves as well.
And Mr. Choolokian.
Well, you know, walking door to door, you hear everybody's, doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in, everybody has the same aggravation and the same problems. What I'm gonna do is things that I know I can do. You know, I'm gonna fix that sidewalk, I'm gonna trim that tree, I'm gonna fix your roads, I'm gonna have a mayor's hotline, you call me, I'm gonna answer my cell phone, we're gonna try to fix your problems. Everybody's lives in the year 2019, you're zipping around, you wake up in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, you look at the clock, it's 10 o'clock at night. So all the little aggravations I'm gonna take out of your life. You hit that pothole, it's gonna be fixed. You need your tree trimmed. I mean, I've been talking to people, trimmed trees that 15 years trying to get it taken care of, 30 years with a sidewalk.
Mr.
All your
Choolokian,
aggravation.
Our next question is for Mr. Restaino, and we begin with Mr. Schiff.
We obviously have talked a lot already about the revenue problem in the city and the financial problems in the city. It has been many years now since the city performed a citywide property tax reassessment. So what is your position on that, and would you support one as mayor?
Well, the question of reassessment is not a question that's going to take care of the budget issue. That's not what that would be designed to do. I can tell you right now, I am not promoting reassessment. It's not something that I'm campaigning on. I believe that the road to recovery in the city of Niagara Falls is the ability to expand our business economy. We need to do things that are going to make small business work here. Raising the business tax in this particular budget as proposed is one of those things that's it's a killer. Ultimately, I recognize that the tourist industry here is an important piece of what we do, but it's also a seasonal industry. We have to start looking for those opportunities. As I've said to a number of folks, you know, Yahoo came to town and we didn't even go to the table. We knew that Amazon was sniffing around in Western New York and we didn't even bother to talk with them. We have to realize that the competition for those types of businesses is fierce. And so we have to go to them and not expect them to come to us. And once we get them here, show them the benefits of why it makes sense for them to be in Niagara Falls.
Mr. Choolokian, 30 seconds.
Everybody knows me that I definitely never are for reassessments or raising taxes or garbage fees or stuff like that. The people in Niagara Falls small business has been paying too much for too long. Again, our new ways to generate revenue, that helps the Niagara Falls budget. Wasting money, $300 million, casino money gone, infrastructure, economic development. Those are the things we have to look at. We have to spend our money wisely, and we can't take it on the taxpayers anymore. So absolutely not am I for reassessment.
And Mr. Elder, 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, people don't want to be taxed. If they're getting something for their tax dollars, then they don't mind being taxed for it. But what we really need to do is we need to bolster up. We have 8+ million people coming here a year, and we need to focus on that. It's not just a seasonal thing. People are coming to Niagara Falls on a yearly basis. We used to have things like the Festival of Lights in the wintertime. We used to have the Winter Garden. Things like that kept people coming to Niagara Falls year-round. Anyone that got married in the wintertime was at the Winter Garden making sure that they got photos and stuff. So we need things like that.
Mr. Elder. Our next question begins with Mr. Choolokian and comes from Mr. Darrow.
For nearly 24 years now, they have been paying the taxes on the property, and the grass is growing very green. But the south end and the property that NFR controls has not seen any development, and it's almost 24 years. How do we solve this problem and encourage them to attract developers on that property?
You just said it, Tom. It's over 24 years that property hasn't been developed. You know, in my campaign, I went down there. It's very surreal when you see how much property it really is, and you forget how far it goes back. I think the people that run NFR here, I think their job was to make sure nothing happened. I don't know, I can't speak for past administrations, how did they reach out to them? The first thing we have to reach out to them is see if they want to do business with Niagara Falls. If they don't want to do business with Niagara Falls, then we got to figure out our way to get that land back or get someone that wants to do something with that property. So we got to reach out to it. It can't go another 24 years. Like I said, it's very surreal to see that property.
Mr. Elder.
We have pristine land all along the gorge. When you go to Canada, you see a totally different landscape. I tell people you go to Canada to see the beauty of Niagara Falls in New York. But there are things that they're doing over there that we can definitely do over here. In my travels throughout the Department of State, every city that we went to with the Department of State facility, we met with the mayor and we talked with the mayor to get information on what they were doing, and we're going to actually continue that and bring some of those ideals here to Niagara Falls.
Mr. Restaino.
You know, I think that Niagara Falls is at a stage where just fighting with folks isn't going to make any sense. We're in a desperate situation. We need to make as many partnerships as we can. So I think our first step would be to communicate with NFR on their intent to have an open dialogue with them. Ultimately, if they aren't interested in moving their properties forward, I've already been in contact with some of the departments in the County of Niagara, as well as some of our other government partners, on ways in which we could move the properties out.
Thank you, Mr. Restaino. Our next question is for Mr. Elder. We start with Mr. Shearer.
Well, one of the things that we hear a lot, and I'm sure Tom hears a lot from callers, relates to the general condition of the housing stock in the city, code enforcement, that sort of thing. Can you discuss a little bit about your plan for compelling some property owners who may not be living up to the existing codes to take better care of their property, or with new property owners who purchase properties to guide them to make sure that they're maintaining their properties up to code?
Well, we have to make sure that we have stringent rules in place to make sure that they are adhering to those things. We have many of our council members that are actually going out cutting grass. I'm knocking on doors on a daily, and people are telling us, my house, we take pride in our house, but the next door neighbor, their grass needs to be cut. They're not shoveling in the wintertime. We need to make sure that if they're not doing that, we're going to go out, take care of that, build them, and then make sure that they get that taken care of the next time. So,
Mr. Restaino.
A lot of the problems that confront the city in this regard have to do with the ability for the department to get out and enforce the rules that we currently have. So some of that's going to come from leadership within that department. That department of code enforcement is a critical piece in upgrading the image of the city. And so what we need to do is make sure that we have competent leadership that can go about the business of making sure that the men and women who work in that department are accomplishing the task that they've been assigned.
And Mr. Choolokian.
That's definitely a big concern going door to door. When you see a nice street and a couple of houses that they don't cut the grass or they don't take care of their property. The inspection department has rules that we have to go by. We have to enforce them. As a councilman, we've seen it every day that some of the rules wasn't abided by. Some of the rules are outdated. I think we have to, if the rules ain't working, we have to definitely fix them. But the most important thing is we have to stop selling the in-rent properties the same kind of people. We have people with 100-something properties don't pay their taxes. We talked about as a council to try to put something together with a blacklist. That's the first thing I'm going to do. If they're not paying their taxes, they're not taking care of their property, they're not allowed to buy in Niagara Falls anymore, especially out-of-town landlord. That's probably one of the biggest things that the people have to put on.
Thank you, Mr. Choolokian. Our next question is for Mr. Restaino, and we begin with Mr. Dare.
You know, this question came up during the last debate, and I'll bring it up again, because since the last debate, nothing has been done about this building. Can you address that, the library building and its condition? What can we do to improve it or replace it?
Well, I've been connected to this building either as a board member or now as counsel to the board for about 30 years, and I can tell you that my entire time here, this building has always been a challenge. It seems to me that for a variety of reasons, this building probably is not the best place for us to continue to house not only our main public library, but also some of the treasures that we have in our local history. So it would be my intention to almost immediately look for a new location. This particular building, the ability to maintain it and or to repair it is staggering in a community that has as many other fiscal challenges as we have. So it would be my intent to find something that's much more conducive to our needs. And then obviously with regard to this building, take about the business of trying to find out if there are options for others to want to purchase either the property, the building, just to get it out of the city's responsibility. There are too many things. Mr. Pfeiffer even explained to me how he couldn't get up here because the elevator wasn't working. And that's a problem that's probably been plaguing this place, among others, for many, 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 many years.
Mr. Choolokian.
Absolutely. This building's been a problem for years, and I'm 52 years old. I can't remember when it was good. My idea that I always liked was the old Carnegie Building, the original library. I think the vintage look of it is the perfect spot for it. I think it's big enough in the back to add on to it. We can add up. I think that's the perfect spot, is the old Carnegie Building. And, again, we can market this property to see if we can get someone to buy it. If not, we got to get rid of it. It's cool.
Mr. Elder.
Just to add on to both what they also said. This building has presented problems ever since it was first built. And one of the things that I'd definitely be looking at is to see what the cost is to just tear the building down, because there's too many costs associated with the upkeep and trying to make sure that it's staying up to snuff.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Our next question is from Mr. Choolokian. It comes from Mr. Scheer.
What are your thoughts on the level of cost associated with personnel in the city? Do you consider them on par with other communities in this area? Do you think they're too high? What are your thoughts on personnel, police, fire, public works?
One thing, we complain about how bad the crime is, but then we want to lay off police officers. I don't want to lay off police officers. I want to add police officers to help the crime. Like I said before, I worked 32 years in the city of Niagara Falls Law Enforcement. I'll give you some numbers. Just the hourly, we used to have 800 hourly. We have 96 people. That's our hourly workers. We have 5 people that do roads. We have 2 people that cut the complete Hyde Park. I mean, do we have enough people? Absolutely not. Wages, they're average around 30-something thousand apiece. They don't make big money. Our problem is not enough workers. I think the total, we have 212 total city employees, not counting police and fire. Police, I think we have 112, fire, maybe a little under that. We have to, what our problem is, we don't coordinate, we don't schedule right, we don't have new initiatives. The overtime is what's killing us because we don't have enough people on staff. So we have to reorganize each department. We have to get the best bang for our buck, and we got to make sure our workers do their job. I mean, there's always a couple bad apples, and we always get the bad rep for our city workers, police officers. Wherever you guys work, there's some good workers and bad workers. We have a lot of great workers. We just got to let them do their job, have the right people in place to lead them to get Niagara Falls.
Thank you, Mr. Choolokian. Mr. Elder.
So basically, we have, as I said, we have a lot of people that are doing jobs that they're not really supposed to be doing. I'd like to make sure that people know what their job descriptions are and ensure that they're doing those things. Also, I'm once a firefighter, always a firefighter. We definitely don't want to lay off any firefighters, but at the same time, with all of our employees, we don't want our employees to bankrupt the city. So we want to make sure that the things that they're doing correctly and within the means of the budget.
Again, the issue, in my opinion, is more a question of workforce and the proper deployment of our workforce. I don't know about you, but, and I've said this to a lot of folks, when I see the fire, I run away from it, the firefighters run into it. When I see trouble, I run away from it, and the police officers are required to go at it. So they have jobs that are difficult. I don't think that any of us could suggest that they're not worth the money that they are paid. I think what we have to focus on, though, is how they are deployed in order to be able to give us, as Mr. Elder said, the best bang for our buck.
Very good. Our next question begins with Mr. Elder, and it comes from Mr. Darrow.
The subject came up a bit earlier and was just mentioned. Dead trees around the city, specifically a lot of them around the golf course. Now, traditionally, Public Works and Forestry is one of the first things that council members look at to cut. With these reductions over the years, how can we possibly go about reducing the size of the number of dead trees that we have in the city? And it is considerable.
First of all, those dead trees are coming from a lot of the chemicals and what have you that are in the area. So we need to start cleaning up Niagara Falls. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be going to the governor. Governor, please come to Niagara Falls. I lived in the Love Canal. There are so many things that are killing these trees, and we need to make sure that that could be one thing that can definitely stop it.
Bob?
Well, again, part of our problem is always going to be, until we get a hold of our fiscal house, we're going to have difficulties attacking all of these issues. But I actually heard from a resident who has some familiarity with this. There's actually grants available that allow you to go after, certainly some of the, I think the ash trees are the ones that sustain some disease. And there's actually money available to help remove those. And I think we need to pursue those kinds of options, because there are enough dead trees out there for us to, obviously want to take as sophisticated an opportunity to remove them as we can.
Thank you, Mr. Restaino and Mr. Choolokian.
Well, it's real simple. We have dead trees, we have to cut them down. Again, when we talked about our workforce, we have 5 or 6 people in forestry, like Tom said. Years ago, we used to hire temporary, seasonal workers for the summertime for programs like this. If I'm lucky enough to be mayor, I'm gonna have 2 shifts on forestry. We're gonna have an afternoon shift like Canada does in other cities. We're gonna do what we have to do to get the trees done. It's not that hard. You just cut them down. We just have to have the manpower, good organization, and reorganize the forestry department to get this thing done. We're gonna cut the trees down. It's not that hard.
Our next question goes to Mr. Restaino. It comes from Mr. Scheer.
Yeah, it's under
The Robert Moses Parkway removal is ongoing, and I'd like to know your thoughts on that project and what you think it might mean for the city, if anything. And also, what are your thoughts on development in that area? Should there be commercial development in that area? Is that something you would be okay with?
Well, I think that the removal of the Parkway, at least as I see it now in the designs, is going to be a good thing. I think that it provides an ability to connect the Gorge Rim with the business district in the North Main Street area. In my conversations with the major property owner down there, Blue Cardinal Capital, they've talked about some of the plans that they have to make that connection. So I think that if we allow business development to begin to flourish along North Main Street, I'm not necessarily a fan of building structures along the Gorge Rim. But I think once we remove that portion of the Parkway, all of that area along Whirlpool becomes an awful lot, much more valuable with regard to potential commercial development.
Mr. Choolokian.
Well, they kind of dropped the ball on the removal of the Parkway. I worked with late Harvey Albaum. We sponsored a resolution of the council member. The original plan was to take the whole Parkway out, have development on Main Street, and have development on the gorge itself. Over the years, the politics got involved. They did the plan to make partial with one road. I think you look at Canada, like Mr. Elder said, it's amazing over there. It's a tourist town. We have great opportunities with the gorge, with the Parkway removal, and with Main Street. I think it should have been developed to be a tourist attraction all the way down. That whole rim should have been a tourist attraction plus Main Street.
Mr. Elder, your last on this question.
As I knock on the doors, many people have complained about that project actually being underway, but now that it is underway, we have to deal with it. So basically, we want to make sure that we get any type of investments in there that we can bring more tourists to this area, because it's a beautiful area. You have some of the most spectacular views of the gorge in that area, and I think people will definitely benefit from that.
Thank you. Our next question begins with Mr. Choolokian. It comes from Mr. Darrow.
I guess the bottom line is that we all want to reduce taxes and increase services to the residents of the city. What would your thoughts be regarding, and this would be on a state, county level, any level whatsoever, shared services? And perhaps you can share with us perhaps what services you'd like to see shared.
Well, you know, shared services is kind of a tricky situation. You hear all the, I call it, they're all fables out there. If anybody works for a union, it works like this. Like, we can't go to Buffalo and have our police officers there, they can't come here. Our road people can't go there, they can't come here. That's how the unions work. You lose a lawsuit in about 2 seconds through arbitration, through courts. What we can do is we could share buying of supplies. We could co-op with the county. We could use other cities, what we could do. What my idea was with the in-house demolition, with the road machines that I wanted to bring. It's all new programs that these other cities didn't have. So my idea was, once we're done with Niagara Falls with replacing our roads, in-house demolition, the other cities could hire us to train their workers, to use our machines. Never done before by their employees, so there's no grievances there. We have new revenue coming in.
Mr. Elder, Mr. Elder, your reply.
So I think of the tax right now on for the trash tax. If we looked at ideals such as Department of DPW actually coming back around to collecting the trash, instead of the large contracts that we're using right now that people are really not happy with, I think we can generate more funds for our city and keep the work within our city instead of contracting it out to others.
Mr. Restaino, your thoughts.
Since the beginning of the campaign, I've been a proponent of what I call collaborative government. Shared services is a difficult topic to wrestle with because it speaks more to some of the nuts and bolts of how cities deliver services. I think we can do much more by working with our neighbors in the purchase of items, in the general government services. As a matter of fact, I have published in one of the guest views that I delivered, depending upon how it shakes out, you could save anywhere between $5 and $8 million in general government services by working together.
Thank you. Our next question for Mr. Elder comes from Mr. Scheer.
The city invested a lot of money in the development of the North End train station and the Underground Railroad Museum, and I'd like your thoughts on where do you see this site going in the future? It has been heavily criticized for not getting the sort of traffic that people think it should have, I suppose, but where do you see it fitting into, if you do, in the future of the city?
Well, if the project goes as planned with revitalizing the gorge area, that's going to bring people even closer to that area. Many people have complained about it. You go to the train station and you can't even get a bite to eat at the train station. So I mean, that's something that something that really was not thought out properly, and many people have complained about it. But it's a problem that we have to deal with right now, and we have to make sure that we get the most use out of that train station, and trying to we need to make sure that the tourists know about that train station. It is available to come to Niagara Falls, so we want to make sure that everybody tries to get as much use as possible from that train station.
Mr. Stein.
I know that the train station is a flashpoint for a lot of people, but it's here, we have it, and now what we have to do is try to deal with how we manage it. The Underground Railroad Exhibition Museum is a fabulous place, and if you haven't visited it, you really should treat yourself to that. I agree that there are things that we can do better at that location, whether it is going out to find other vendors who might take occupancy in there. Some of that's going to require us to have a lot more traffic there, and some of that could happen by virtue of some of the things that are happening in Ontario right now, including, at a minimum, the extension of the GO train. So there are a lot of things that could result in a positive for the train station.
Mr. Choolokian.
Public record, I voted against the train station, $45 million when at a time we weren't ready for it. It is there. It's something that people talk about when you go door to door. The only good part is now we have some developers on Main Street. Hopefully, they're gonna do the right thing and develop Main Street. We have to tie it in with the train station. We have to market our area about the train station, about what Main Street's gonna be, and hopefully it does become a development in between the Parkway. That's something that we have to reach out and try to get developers. Same as the police station. The police station was supposed to have some development there, nothing was there. So we gotta kind of step it up and try to get some more development around those buildings.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Restaino has the next question from Mr. Darrow.
The two words that are mentioned most often on our program, some agree, some do not. I'd be interested in your thoughts on the possibility of a control board.
Well, a lot of folks talk about control boards, and I have to be honest with you, prior to getting involved in this campaign, I must say that I didn't spend an awful lot of time trying to find out about them. But since the beginning of the campaign, I have gone about the business of trying to learn just what it is that a control board can and cannot accomplish. The difficulty with a control board in the city of Niagara Falls is that it's not necessarily going to tackle the issues that face Niagara Falls directly. A lot of folks talk about labor costs and all of those things. The control board that took over control of both Erie County and Buffalo was during a period of time when those labor unions were not in contract. So you can have a control board take over the management of government here, but basically all they're going to do if they try to abandon the contracts is develop litigation for the city. So I guess it is a common topic, but I don't necessarily think that folks have enough information to realize that it may not be the thing that's going to alleviate the problems that we have. That's one of the things I hope to do if elected, and that is to communicate more clearly with the residents so that everyone understands all of those circumstances and all of those parameters.
Mr. Choolokian.
You know, our residents talk about control boards, but they really don't understand what it's about, because the first thing out of our taxpayers' mouths is we don't want our taxes raised. I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure if it's Nassau County, but other cities that had control boards, that's the first thing they do is to raise our taxes. So there we go. There's everybody's gonna get mad if we have a control board out there to raise our taxes. Same thing, mismanagement of funds, what I've been preaching my whole career. We blow money, $300 million in casino money, general fund money. We waste money on the wrong things. That's why I'm running for mayor, because I want to change things in Niagara Falls, stop wasting money, and start going in the right direction. That's how we're going to fix Niagara Falls.
Mr. Elder.
I don't agree with the control board. I think with effective leadership, we can move forward, but we just have to make sure that we work within the means that we have. And with effective leadership, we can actually do that.
Our next question is directed to Mr. Choolokian and comes from Mr. Shear.
Glenn just mentioned casino revenue. So let's assume two scenarios. First scenario would be, I guess I'll take a two-part question here, but first scenario would be we don't get the money. The money doesn't come. What do you do as mayor?
Same thing I've been preaching for years. Again, well, we keep on talking about finances. My road program. If we can do the roads 40% cheaper, you just freed up 40% in that market. Now we put 40% over here. We have to do things differently, cheaper, and with new technology. We have to be able to have a surplus. Right now, if we had $300 million and we had half of that as a surplus, it'd be nice to have a little stash over here. We got to do things differently, and Niagara Falls has to learn to say no. Everybody has their hand out. We can't do it anymore. Okay, we got to worry about the taxpayers, we got to worry about the business owners, and we got to do things differently. We got to stop wasting money. So, as the first thing as a mayor of Niagara Falls, we're not going to blow money no more. We're going to worry about the people that live here, the businesses that live here, and we're going to do things different, cheaper, better ways. Second part?
You got a part too.
Let's now assume that. Well, I guess let's just go down the line and answer that question. I'll come back to me.
Thank you. Mr. Elder.
We have to coexist. We all live in the city together, and we know Niagara Falls is a melting pot. They know that we're in a situation. We know where we stand. Basically, I'm going to continue to try and work with the Senecas. There are different ways of getting them to the table, and as I said, they have provided services that we all have, and we're paying for those services. There are ways to get around them to paying some of those things also. So
Mr. Restaino.
Well, as I indicated earlier, I've already had those conversations, and so if the casino money didn't arrive, it would be my intent to have entered into those contracts for services so that some revenue is generated from the services provided to the casino. And then secondly, my plan for collaborative government affords us an opportunity to shrink the expenses that the city faces by sharing those expenses with some of our neighbors and other levels of government. So those two things together will help try to shrink the budget so that we're not dependent on what so many councils have done in the past, and that is spend casino money to fill budget gaps and go to general fund reserves to fill budget gaps. We need to be smarter, and we can't rely on that anymore.
All right, our next question is for Mr. Elder. It comes from...
He's gonna do part two.
He's going to do
Part
part
two.
two?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. We'll start with...
Running an audible here, sorry, Tom.
That's all right.
All right.
So let's assume the best case scenario and that the arbitration ruling holds and the money comes in. We hear a lot about the criticism about how the casino money has already been spent. So as mayor, what would you do with whatever tens of millions of dollars that come in from the casino?
Well, it's the same thing, Mark. I got a track record of doing things for the people of Niagara Falls. I've been telling the council for years when I was there that casino money was earmarked for infrastructure, economic development. I hate to use the same thing, but we'll talk about roads, my in-house demolition program. If we can do roads 40% cheaper, that's infrastructure. Our roads are gonna last a long time. So now the money's freed up. Now we move that road money over here. Now we have a surplus. If we do in-house demolition, do it in-house, and we say 50%, 56% cheaper, that's again, 56% savings goes over here. Every time we have a savings in the general fund money with taxpayers' money, it's always gone. We use casino money for infrastructure and economic development. That's our savings. That's how we balance the budget. We have to go through every line and use it for the right reasons. Infrastructure, economic development, that's how we're gonna have a balanced budget.
All right, just for Mr. Elder and Mr. Restaino, since we've gone a little off the chart here, I'm going to give you guys a little extra time for your second reply. So Mr. Elder and then Mr. Restaino.
Well, first of all, I think that the money that was used for casino was definitely misspent, and it should not have been part of the budget in the first place. That money should have been put aside as a just in case or for other reasons, such as Mr. Choolokian was saying. So I think we need to go back to something like that. If we were to get money like that, we need to use it in the correct manner and not just put it in the budget and use it up until it's gone and then wonder what we're gonna do after that.
And Mr.
Restaino.
Well, since 2012 to this current impasse, council's approved budgets that include $60 million in casino funds. So we can see that there's been this constant drumbeat to just use casino money to plug holes. If that money were to come through, one of the things that we're going to be faced with is paying the bill that the state will send us for the money that they've advanced us. So a certain portion of it has already been committed. After that, once we begin the process, and if I'm elected, I will begin that process. Once we begin the process of shrinking our dependence on casino revenue, we can start using that money for what it really can help us with, and that is the expansion of our business base. Because the only way we're going to get healthy is if we start growing our economy.
Gentlemen, thank you. Our next question is for Mr. Elder. It comes from Mr. Darrow.
The tourism business in Niagara Falls is flourishing, and the city of Niagara Falls is able to levy a bed tax on hotels for every hotel room that is rented. That is done through state-enabled legislation. The city receives 15% of those funds, which must be used for very specific purposes. Now, I've heard here tonight the funding of police officers with tourism dollars, and I'm not quite sure that fits the criteria of what's that for, or what that is for. I'd be interested in your thoughts of what that money could be used for in the city budget.
Whatever the major problems that we have at the time, we might be able to use it for that. We want to earmark, make sure the money is being used properly for whatever the situation might be. So our tourism dollars are very important to us. If you have a bed tax, it's something that could be feasible, but we'd have to just take a look at it.
Mr. Stein.
So this is with regard to the bed tax, Tom, is that what you're asking?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Well, I guess if we use the casino revenue properly, and that is to expand our tourism industry, that will create more longer stays, which will create a greater bed tax piece, and then those dollars can be used to assist us in the delivery of services to the community, stabilizing the tax base, doing all of those things that so many people over the course of the last 10 or 11 months, they've been begging for as I've spoken to them. Somebody to just get control over the depleted tax base.
Mr. Choolokian.
A couple of things. I'd like to touch what Tom said. As a council member working with Maria Brown, we found a way that we could use T funds, tourism fund money for police officers with overtime and things like that. So that's how we're going to fund the police officers. Talking to the businesses down there, their number one worry is crime. Tourists getting their cars broken into, they're worried about going someplace out at nighttime. And talking to the business owners, we have to see what they want to do downtown. It seems like some small groups are making decisions how that tourism fund money should be spent. I think we should reach out to all the businesses, get a group together of the business owners, and let's see what they want to do with it. And definitely number one in my book is crime down there. We have to reduce it so that the tourists can be safe.
All right, we've come to that moment of the night where we're going to present our final question of the evening. That's going to begin with Mr. Restaino. It's going to come from Mr. Shear. Final question, no two partners.
Wait,
Who's the boss here?
wait a minute.
Who's the boss around here, Pfeiffer? Anyway, well, we kind of, I guess, end on sort of a positive note. What do you view as the city's best asset, and what would you do as mayor to, improve it or enhance it, bring it forward? What's the city's best asset? How would you capitalize on it?
The city's best asset are its people. There is great pride and love for the city among the folks that I have visited with over the last 11 months. And I think what they are looking for is some hope and an opportunity to see the city that they remember come back to life again. And we can't rewind the tape and start back in 1940 again. But what we can do is we can take the initiative now to improve the city and make it a better place. So the first and most important asset is our people. Next, I think we all know that the key that turns the engine in Western New York is our falls. And so we have that, and we need to make sure that we do as much as we can to market that, because it is the one thing. If I could take you all to someplace else in the world, and I mentioned the cities of Buffalo, Lockport, or North Tonawanda while we're at this foreign place, they wouldn't know anything about it. But if you say the words Niagara Falls, many, many, many folks from all different parts of the world know about us here.
Choolokian.
I think we all agree that the most important and best thing in Niagara Falls is the people and the small business owners. And walking door to door, again, I'm going to tell you the same thing. I hear the same problems. It doesn't matter if it's in DeVoe, doesn't matter if it's in LaSalle, doesn't matter if it's Pierce Avenue downtown. Well, how do we make it better in Niagara Falls? When the citizens of Niagara Falls, the business owners are complaining, we got to fix those problems, and it's not that hard. Okay, would I like to promise that we're going to bring 1,000 jobs tomorrow at $50 an hour? I would love that. Am I going to promise that? Absolutely not. If you call me and your sidewalk's broke, am I going to fix that sidewalk? Absolutely. If you tell me that the trees got to be cut down, am I going to cut it down? Absolutely. If you tell me your road is bad, you're hitting potholes, we're going to fix it. If you tell me the crime's bad, we're going to have police in your area. We're going to do the
Thank you,
things
Mr.
that the people
Choolokian.
of Niagara Falls want to have.
Mr. Choolokian, thank you. Finally, Mr. Elder.
Okay. In my travels all over the world, there are many places that I've been to, but I've been all over India. Every place that I've been to in India, places that I can't even pronounce. Not only did people know about Niagara Falls, but they were planning on coming to Niagara Falls. So the beauty of this city is the one thing that brings people not only one time, 2 times. Niagara Falls was a honeymoon capital of the world. We need to get back to those tourism things that bring people back to this city.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for your insightful answers to our questions. We're going to conclude the debate by giving each of you the opportunity for a 2-minute closing statement. We'll do it alphabetically as we did in the beginning. And so, Mr. Choolokian, you are first.
Well, here we go again, guys. Mayor election. Every 4 years, we hear all the complaints. We hear all the people crying. What happened in Niagara Falls? Well, it's not 5 years. It's not 10 years. It's not 20 years. It's 30, 40, 50 years later, we have the same problems. I'm the first candidate that I can remember that put a plan together. I made it visual. It shows you what I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna do it. That's the most important thing. I have a plan, it's doable. I won't do everything in those videos that I put out there if I win mayor, okay? We'll be honest with you. The elections every year, 4 years later, we complain, oh, here we go again, the same old story, same clique guy, same money guy, same groups behind it. Lynch Elocution is not tied with anybody. I have a proven track record. Again, I tell people, all other candidates, they might have more stories than Dr. Seuss. You Google my name, I have a qualifications and a background, a public record that is the truth. You can't lie on the internet, okay? Anytime the people not
Okay.
David, let her begin.
All right, guys. Let's bring it down. Choolokian continues.
So same thing. Everything I've ever done is out there. You know, I mean, I'm there for the taxpayers, the small business owners, and all the families here. I've been here my whole life. I love Niagara Falls. I love the people here. We can't continue on and vote for the same kind of people that ruined our town. We can't do it no more. I'm the guy with the qualification. I have 32 years of experience, budgets, contracts, small business owner. I have a plan in place that you can watch on my Facebook page or on my website. It shows you exactly what's going to be done. So if we're going to elect the same type of leadership, we're going to complain again. So again, I love Niagara Falls. I appreciate your vote. And to move Niagara Falls forward, I definitely know that I'm the guy that can do it. And please vote Choolokian. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you'll have all the time in the world to applaud when we're done. All right? We're clear on that? Thank you. Mr. Elder, your closing statement.
When I left, before I left to go into the military, my grandmother, who I affectionately called Granny, told me, baby, never forget where you came from. And I haven't. I've been preparing for this opportunity for most of my life. I've been in the presence of kings, presidents, generals, and I've not lost that common touch. I feel comfortable reaching out to any of them to have them come and help us here in Niagara Falls, New York. I've been to all 50 states. I've been to all of our inhabited territories and six out of the 7 continents, making contacts. We have to learn to restore our faith in the government. Government for the people, government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And that clearly won't happen if we continue to vote on our old party lines. Partisan politics has pretty much put Niagara Falls in the position that we are in right now. When you're facing things that might not be going the way that you hoped, John C. Maxwell said it best. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects the winds to change. But the leader adjusts the sails. Ladies and gentlemen, I am that leader, and I am adjusting the sails to a dynamic new future for Niagara Falls, New York. I ask you to vote for me on the Dynamic New Future line, and I say God bless all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Elder. Thank you, Mr. Elder and Mr. Restaino.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank both Mr. Elder and Mr. Choolokian for their participation tonight as well. It isn't easy to sit up here and answer these questions, and I appreciate them both for doing that. I have been a small business owner in this community for nearly 35 years. And I have watched the community struggle through the last several years of how this government has made it difficult for small business. I have never been a part of city government. I have never been a part of the parade of casino money to plug holes in the budget. I can tell you that as I look at the problems that the city faces, it's clearly a problem that started with a lack of leadership. And that leadership failure comes from the elected officials who have been there over the course of this last decade. I can tell you, and those of you who know me in this room, either having represented you or family members of yours, you know that I am prepared to take the bull by the horns, as they say, and do what's necessary to help fix this city. I know that you recognize that I don't believe in partisan politics. That for me, your political party affiliation isn't something that I check before I decide to represent you on the problems that you're confronting. And so for me, this isn't about whatever party line you may choose to vote for me. This is about voting for a leader who's prepared to make the difficult choices that we're going to have to face over the course of the next 4 years. So I'm simply asking you that on November 5th, vote for the candidate who really does present change, the candidate who really hasn't been a part of the problem over the course of the last decade. And I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our debate. We'll be back here Thursday night with your candidates for City Council. Thanks for coming out.
Always buzzing like that.